listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Well, good Monday morning, everyone. We're certainly glad you're letting us spend some time with you.
Yes, we are.
At least it's Monday morning where we are.
Right.
When you're listening to this, it might be some other time, and that's okay. Well, it is.
Yes.
If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, you might want to check that out. Don't forget to check out the books while we're there. Or while you're there, I should say.
Yeah, while you're there.
Yes, sometimes I get tongue-tied. Got a lot to talk about today, so we're just going to kind of dive in. You know, we're up to the beginning of the fall feast, and we've already discovered so far that these are not exactly Jewish feasts. You know, these are times that our Creator's appointed for us when He chooses to be worshipped His way, not our way, right? He gives us the sun, the moon, the stars as a calendar to track His appointed times, and He hates it when we change His appointments. You know, we're not just penciled in here, all right? You know, it's, you know, I'll pencil you in, and then you can back out. These times are not even written in ink. You know, when you write it in ink, it's a little more permanent. These times are not even written in stone. You know, when you write it in stone, stones can break. These times are given to us in the sun, the moon, and the stars. They're up there in the sky for everybody to see. So we're going to listen to how this particular next feast is described in Leviticus and in Numbers.
The Lord also said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say, on the first day of the 7th month you are to have a day of rest, a sacred assembly announced by trumpet blast. You must not do any regular work, but you are to present an offering made by fire to the Lord." Leviticus 23 through 25. On the first day of the 7th month you are to hold a sacred assembly, and you must not do any regular work. This will be a day for you to sound the trumpets. As a pleasing aroma to the Lord, you are to present a burnt offering of 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, together with their grain offerings of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah with the bull, 2/10 of an ephah with the ram, and 1/10 of an ephah with each of the 7 male lambs. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. These are in addition to the monthly and daily burnt offerings with their prescribed grain offerings and drink offerings. They are a pleasing aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. Numbers chapter 29, verses 1 through 6.
Now we get some additional information in Numbers. The offerings that are to be made. But why a male goat as a sin offering when in just 10 days it's going to be Yom Kippur? Right? The Day of Atonement, the Day of Covering, when the sins of the entire nation will be covered. More on that in a few minutes. But first, let's look at this appointed time when it happens. It's the only appointed time that occurs on the first day of the month. The new moon begins the month when the first sliver of the new moon is to be sighted by at least 2 or more witnesses. So we need to be watchful. We need to watch the sky, watch the calendar to see that. We need to be watching the moon as it wanes down and it disappears, and then careful to be observant to see when the light once again shows on that first small sliver. You know, what Meyer calls God's thumbnail. a lot of things can happen when you're trying to observe the moon, right? It can be cloudy and you can't see it at all. You're going to miss it. The atmospheric conditions need to be correct or you're going to miss it, right? There may be a month when the moon remains unlit. You're expecting it and it's not there. So you need to be aware of that as well. Sometimes it takes an extra day. So why make this special day, a very special appointed time, on a day when no one really knows if the moon would be sighted or not, a time when mankind doesn't know exactly when it will happen? Let me remind you of Hebrews 10:1. For the law is only a shadow of good things to come, not the realities themselves. It can never, by the same sacrifices offered year after year, make perfect those who draw near to worship. The writer of Hebrews is telling us that contained in the book of Moses are illustrations, not the real thing, but shadow pictures. It's an unclear picture of something that will happen, and Yom Teruah is no different. He does go on to say that the sacrifices are secondary. The primary focus should be on being watchful and being observant. The primary focus of all of these appointed times is to meet with our Creator at a time that He chooses, to watch, to see what fits where. This particular celebration, we can call it that at the moment, happens on a day that nobody really knows. They're not sure exactly when. And it's spoken of in a couple of places. Go ahead and read those passages.
No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming of the Son of Man. Matthew chapter 24, verses 36 and 37. Then the Lord will go out to fight against those nations. As he fights in the day of battle, on that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem. And the Mount of Olives will split in two from east to west, forming a great valley, with half of the mountain moving to the north and half to the south. You will flee by my mountain valley, for it will extend to Azal. You will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. On that day there will be no light, no cold or frost. It will be a day known only to the Lord, without day or night. But when evening comes, there will be light. Zechariah 14, verses 3 through 7.
Okay, so Yeshua tells his disciples that no one knows the day or hour except for the Father. Here's a clue, right? Zechariah tells us, now, here's where I'm going to upset the Christians today. Well, I should say, here's another place I'm going to upset the Christians today. Zechariah tells us it will be Jehovah himself who goes out to fight against the nations, and it will be he who stands on the Mount of Olives. Then Zechariah tells us it will be a day known only to the Father, only to Jehovah. Now, Christians like to preach about Acts chapter 2, and Peter quotes Joel, right? So let's take a look at that as well.
The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will escape, for on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be deliverance, as the Lord has promised among the remnant called by the Lord. Joel chapter 2, verses 31 and 32. The great day of the Lord is near and coming quickly. Listen, the day of the Lord. Then the cry of the mighty will be bitter. That day will be a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of destruction and desolation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, a day of horn blasts and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the high corner towers. I will bring such distress on mankind that they will walk like the blind, because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood will be poured out like dust, and their flesh like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to deliver them on the day of the Lord's wrath. The whole earth will be consumed by the fire of his jealousy, for indeed he will make a sudden end of all who dwell in the land. Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 14 through 18.
Doesn't sound so much like a party or a celebration anymore, does it? A day of shofar blasting. And the next word in verse 16 in the Hebrew is teruah, shouting alarms and battle cries. You know, our Creator's already appointed the day when he will say, enough is enough. The only day I can think that may be more terrifying for a whole lot of people is going to be Judgment Day. Joel doesn't tell us what you're familiar with. Joel says whoever will call on the name of Jehovah will escape. He doesn't write it will be saved. And chances are Peter quoted him properly. What are we going to escape from? Well, the wrath of our Creator. How's it going to happen? What's it going to look like? I have no idea. Nobody does. We have some hints and some clues that we think we might know what it's going to look like, but we really don't. Until it happens, we're not sure. When it happens, you're going to recognize it. Trust me. What can we do to prepare for that day? You know, that great and dreadful day. Well, we can be obedient and we can be observant. We need to live the way we're designed to live and watch for the things our Creator has told us to be watchful for. And that means that we should be willing to observe his appointed times. We should be willing to meet with him on the day of his choosing, not when we feel like it, not when it's convenient for us. You know, I know a lot of people, and they look at Yom Teruah and they say, oh, it's the day when Jesus is coming back. Yeah, how about that? And they want it to be this joyous celebration. But when we really study what it is, and we look at the things that are described, it should be a day that we are prepared for. The male goat offering as a sin offering only 10 days before Yom Kippur, its purpose is to remind us that repentance is necessary, not just one day a year, but whenever we need it. And especially on the day when our Creator chooses to say, enough. And he puts a permanent end to sin. I know a lot of people think Yom Teruah is the day that Yeshua will return. And it could be. But it could also be just before Judgment Day, when all of the evil of this earth will be destroyed forever. There's nothing that tells us that this is going to be a single one-time event. But there are some clues that tell us on this day when no man knows something big is going to happen. Something important is going to happen. Amos 5 warns us not to rush. Don't hasten the day of the Lord. What's in it for you? It's going to be a dark, dark day. A very dark, dark day. I know a lot of people are looking forward to, a lot of Christians are looking forward, when Jesus comes, he's going to put an end to all this. I don't think you're ready for it. I really don't think you're ready for it. I don't think you understand what's going to happen, what it's going to be like. Joel tells us we're going to escape, not be saved. And I've always said that the Bible, in its original language and context, is agonizingly specific. What does it mean to escape? I've known people who were in prison camps, prisoners of war in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. They didn't come out unscathed. Some of them did escape. Some of them were released later, but the ones who escaped did not come out unscathed. Yeah, they were battered and bruised. Some of them were bloody. Some of them still have memories of that. Well, the ones that are left alive still have memories of that. The word escape is much different than saved. If you're saved, you're protected. If you're saved, you have, you're not so much protected, but you know what I mean? I hope. I'm trying. The word isn't coming to my mind that I want to use. Think about when you put money in the bank to save it. You assume it's protected and it's going to be there when you want it. But if you escape, what's that look like? What's it really look like? What's it feel like? It doesn't feel like you're protected. It doesn't feel necessarily good. I can remember years ago, I read that Joel passage in church, and when I changed that word, most people didn't realize it. In fact, I don't think anybody realized it. They didn't understand. There's a difference between being saved from something, being prevented from enduring the hardship, or escaping. Doesn't sound like much of a party anymore, does it? Even though we celebrate it, even though we talk about it, the word Teruah in Hebrew is very, very interesting. It can mean to blow the shofar, to blow the trumpet. But when the people walked around Jericho and they blew the trumpets every day, when they gave that mighty shout, guess what the word is? It's Teruah, a battle cry. And that's exactly what Zephaniah said. There will be battle cries. It's going to be much, much different than what a lot of Christians think it's going to look like. And if you think you're going to get out of here unscathed, I don't think you will. You can't out-prepare this. But you can be prepared for it. How do you escape? By being obedient. By being watchful. By paying attention. By meeting with the Creator when He desires us to meet with Him, not when it's convenient for us. I'm going to stop doing this series because the next two fall feasts are Yom Kippur and Sukkot, Feast of Booths. And I'm going to say this. If you really want to know what the Bible tells us about the Day of Atonement, the Day of Covering, and you want to know the difference between the blood of the lamb in the spring of the year and the blood of the goat in the fall of the year, get a copy of Inheriting Lies. And as you're reading through it, make notes. Compare it with what the Bible says. Yes, I'm going to make you buy the book. It's less than $20. Okay? But when you have it and you read it and you sit there and compare it for yourself, you're going to get much, much more out of it than listening to me tell you about it. So go ahead and do your homework. Be obedient, be watchful, be observant. But most importantly, learn to live the way you're designed to live so that you can escape the wrath of our Creator. Because it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be, as Amos says, a dark, dark day. Exactly what it looks like, I don't know. Exactly what it sounds like, I have no clue. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and say it's going to be a certain date. Because, as we just heard, it's going to be a day when you least expect it. When you don't know. It should be a day that you are, I won't say necessarily afraid of, but ready for, because you've been watching, you've been obedient, you're prepared, you're ready. Not like so many people say, oh, I'm just ready for the Lord to come. If that's your attitude, you're not ready. If you think you're going to get out of here before all the bad stuff happens, you're not ready. I wasn't going to say this. I'm going to say this. The concept of believers being raptured did not come about until around 1828. And it was actually Reverend Moody who heard a young girl speak in Ireland. And she had a vision. And that vision became doctrine. And I'm pretty sure if it would have actually been biblical, it would be somewhere in the Bible where we could point to it and say, here it is. Prior to that, no one thought they were getting out unscathed. Nobody thought they were going to just be taken away before all the bad things happen. It is a recent modern doctrine, and you need to be aware of that as well. Our Creator doesn't do anything unless He tells His prophets first. And He's told them exactly what He's going to do. And they're telling you, you need to be ready. You need to be prepared. You need to be obedient, and you need to be observant. I will add to that one more part of that criteria. You need to be repentant. Because being repentant is the beginning of obedience. Being repentant is the beginning of being observant. Being watchful. Paying attention. Looking around and saying, this could fit there. This could fit there. You know, a lot of bad stuff that happens, we can go back in the, well, actually, let me start over. A lot of bad stuff that's happening today, we can go back in the Bible and say, well, it happened here, and it happened here, and it happened there. It doesn't just happen once and it's done. These things happen so that when you're watchful, you can say, ooh, I need to be more obedient. Because I don't want to be with the people who have rejected the Almighty. I want to be with those who accept him for who he is and what he does. I want to be with the folks who say, well, God told this prophet this, and this prophet this, and this prophet this. Maybe it'd be a pretty good idea if I paid attention to those things and did what they suggested. Or you can take your chances. Choice is yours. To a point. Because eventually, you will no longer have a choice. The choice will be in the hands of the one who sits on the judgment seat. Where do you want to be? It's a whole lot easier to be obedient now and happy later than to be happy now and very, very unhappy later. So it's just something to think about as we get ready for the spring feasts. So until Thursday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Yes, blessings to you all.